Hey, welcome everybody. I can't beatbox. I can't beatbox an intro, but this is episode 9 of Los Cachirules podcast. I'm hosting once again. John is out going on vacation, I think, to St. Thomas, having some
Eso
fun.
says off air.
No, we're
No,
live.
no, he said he was going on vacation with his boyfriend Thomas. I think that's what he said. I'm kidding.
All right, so we're beginning. We have Christian, Daniel, Fernando, Juan, and Ronnie. How's everybody doing?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Good,
Excellent.
man.
So I guess
Going well, man.
cool. I guess we're gonna start off with this El Salvador game, and it's sort of we might be running it quick. In my opinion, there's nothing too much that I have to say about it. But as far as Osorio, in my opinion, it was just no real measuring stick for him, and for me to look at the game and say he did anything at all. But pretty much the players went out and did what they had to do, and that was it. This Honduras game is going to be the one that I'll look at and see. Probably some key stuff. What do you guys think of the El Salvador game?
Um, Obviously, a couple players were out of position. We all know that. Obviously. But other than that, I, I have to agree with you. It's not like he has stamped his style or his message. It's a game that they should have won, obviously, and they did. It should the score should have been bigger. Goes back to the problems that we've been having is not putting away the goals, the easy goals. But at least if you're gonna have a problem in soccer, it's it's basically missing those because at least the team is creating a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, there are a lot of bounces in the box and stuff.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the goal that went in from Chicharito was sort of like, oops, it went in, or things like that. And to me, it seemed like the play was a lot more cohesive and more dominant in the game versus the United States than it was in this last game. Sure, they had possession and everything, but there just wasn't. It was sort of different the way the possession was handled and didn't look as dominant as it was versus the United States. But
Well, the approach was different, at least tactically speaking. There was no three-man midfield. There wasn't really a defensive midfielder. And we were used to, over the past 2 years almost, we were used to getting width from our wingbacks. And from now on, we're going to get that usually from either the midfielders or the wide forwards, maybe in a 4-3-3. So I agree with you. It wasn't really much to analyze in that sense because El Salvador didn't really put up much of a fight. But there were some differences that I think are interesting. They're interesting, but they're hard to really judge in a sense. But there still isn't much that we can sort of pinpoint towards any sort of progression, really, or any stagnation or anything of the sort. Because, again, El Salvador wasn't a test at all.
I was surprised. I honestly thought that El Salvador was going to park the bus for 90 minutes. And to their credit, even though they didn't really put up much of an attack, they did have, they did try to beat, Mexico in the counter, a couple times.
It was a last missed touch usually.
Yeah. I mean, it's like one or two guys would just basically try to beat the Mexican defense, but that would. I mean, that's probably the only thing that worried me about the game was that with a better team, Mexico has to be careful with their back line. I mean, because if they're going to push numbers, the way they did, and I suspect that for parts of the game tomorrow against Honduras, they're going to leave them. They're going to leave the back exposed, and I just they just have to. They have to keep the lines compact. They have to be make their coverages and everything.
I think the game tomorrow it's gonna be completely different, and even the setup's gonna be completely different because, I'm pretty sure he's not gonna go out with no defensive midfielder, and I think that he will probably take a more defensive approach. He's not gonna go all out like he went out with El Salvador. I thought that was kind of interesting that he decided to take out a forward and put in El Gallito Vasquez.
Yeah, another center midfielder.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. He did that, and I don't know what he was trying to achieve with that, other than have more possession of the ball. But they were already winning by the time he did that. Was it 2-0 already? So
Yeah. I don't think it was I'm not saying you're saying this, but I've heard people say that it was a defensive sub. I don't see it as a defensive sub. Technically, you could say it is because he took out a forward for a midfielder, or a midfielder that at least has more defensive duties. But at least the way it played out on the field, it allowed Herrera and Andres Guardado to push up a little bit more. And it also gave Corona and Vela a bit more freedom to sort of roam and find a little bit more gaps. Because the first 20 minutes of the first half, Corona, mostly Corona really, was really having his way with the Salvadorians. And Vela was not really as incisive, but he was moving and trying to find spaces. If anything, I think Vela on the right wide. I think is probably the one thing you can look at as somewhat of a negative, because he didn't really stay wide, and he also didn't combine with Layun all that well. So that side was easier to nullify, even for El Salvador, than the opposite side, because Vela ended up just drifting towards the middle anyway. So, and Layun obviously, I mean, we talked about it last week. It shouldn't be that hard of a transition. He has played right back before, but the truth is, he at least in the moment, he's more accustomed to playing on the left. So he didn't have, he wasn't sharp in that sense. And I mean, there was talk about how the few times that he did get forward, especially in the second half, how he simply just shifted the ball to his left foot in order to cross. And I think, at least in my appreciation, a lot of that was because of technical mistakes in the way that he would set up to cross the ball. There was a couple in particular where he had a bad touch and allowed the Salvadorians to get near him, close him down, so he simply just switched it to his left foot in order to put a cross in. It wasn't like, I didn't think it was a comfort thing where he simply just shifted the ball over to his left because he's accustomed to it. It was more like, a technical fault on his part, not a clean reception, and thus he had to switch it back to his left in order to get the cross in, and or simply what he also did. Yeah, and he was doing that on the left during the Gold Cup. Instead of doing getting the cross in early, he would take an extra touch and simply run out of space, and he would just simply cut it back and go around to his other foot. So I don't really think that was a problem within itself, but it does sort of kind of gives credence to the people who think that he should be on the opposite flank.
My concern is, the game in Honduras for tomorrow is I would have to say that it's more important for Honduras than it is for Mexico, because obviously Mexico already has 3 points. Honduras doesn't have they lost against Canada.
Yeah.
So I mean, just by that, Honduras is going to have to open up. I mean, they're going to have to. And if Osorio is smart, I think, if he's smart, I think he would look at the game against the U.S. and the game against Argentina and go back and use, Mexico's, 5-line, the way Piojo and the way Tuca were doing it. And, I think...
With that 4-3-3?
No, the 5, the back line of 5. And I would put players in their in the positions where they they're comfortable right now. I would put what's his name, Layun, obviously back on the left. as far as putting in, I wouldn't put in Chicharito with Peralta or Jimenez. I would just keep I would play with one center forward, and I would. Sorry, those are my kids. No, I'm kidding.
I was like, what?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, but I wouldn't I
Hey,
wouldn't play with I wouldn't play with two forwards. Because I would play with forwards that can create on the attack and not necessarily play for with their backs to the goalpost.
So
Because
what?
I'm
Do the
I'm I,
gringo park in the bus?
no, not necessarily. But I would basically do what the Nats do to Mexico. Just play the cat and mouse game and just beat them in the back.
Gotcha.
you know
Juan,
I mean,
what I noticed. What can you guys hear me? I'm sorry. What I
yeah,
yeah,
noticed. What I noticed. What he did in the once he took out Chicharito and he took out Peralta. I thought finishing wise, Chicharito had a bad game, and obviously, I mean,
yeah,
he was still moving well. I think Peralta really he looked out of form. He didn't look comfortable. And
no,
you guys mentioned about once he took them out and put in Jimenez, like Chris mentioned, Vela had more freedom. And I thought too, what I noticed is when he took those two out and he moved to a 4-3-3. I noticed on the sideline he had a sub meeting with his coaching staff. I don't know if you guys caught it. He had I don't know all their names. I don't remember all their names, but one of them is what Bolillo Gomez, right?
no,
One
no,
of his
no,
assistants,
no,
and
no.
or what's his
no.
name? But I know, but you know what? It was without Baños. I didn't see Baños, but anyways, he had his three assistants with Osorio, and they were looking at the 4-3-3, and I noticed after the game he gave a press conference that the subs that they made, they were thinking about the Honduras game. So I think kind of Ronnie is right. They are gonna he's probably is gonna approach the Honduras game with one center forward. Now my question is, is Jimenez that guy? Did you
Yes,
think he
yes.
convinced him enough?
Well,
And
yes and
and
no. I think. Go on. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, well, I had another sub question was, Dedos, he did a lot better than Layun on the right. As far as the right back, he combined better with Vela. Obviously, there was more space. So I don't know if he would have gave Layun a chance to kind of adapt to the 4-3-3, maybe he would have looked a little better. I don't know, but I did notice Lopez looked a lot more comfortable. But Osorio did correct him a few times. I don't know. I'm sure you guys caught that one too. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, anyways, that was two questions for you guys.
yeah.
Well, I think
Do you
I'll say real quick, Ronnie, real quick. To your point, I think that yes, he should look at the USA game and the Argentina game. That should be his basis for this game. But I don't think he'll go with a back line of five or three central
three?
defenders. I think he's just going to simply go with Jimenez on the wing, kind of like Tuca did, and hopefully use Jimenez as a two-way sort of weird sort of I don't even know how to call it a wide forward slash midfielder in order to get something out of him on both sides of the ball. So I think he'll take that and use it, but I don't think he'll go with a three-man back line.
They're saying Jimenez is injured or has a slight knee injury.
Yeah.
Well, that would be a problem.
Well,
Mind games?
the reason I bring up the Argentina game is because the coach Mexico pretty much imposed the game. They controlled the tempo. But one of the things that caught me, that caught me by surprise at the end of, was the coach basically saying, no, we control the game because if you think about it, Mexico is a team that likes to control possession, but they conceded possession. So in us, we're the ones that control the game. That's what he said. That's what the Argentine.
That's what Martino said.
Exactly.
That's one way of looking at it.
Well, that's how he said it because he said that Mexico likes to control possession, which is true. But and the reason I say that Osorio needs to look at that game is because you're going to have Honduras. You know that they're going to attack. You know that they're going to leave a lot of spaces in the back. So it's like, well, why not do the same thing that you did against Argentina, who's obviously better, And I don't see the point of playing 2 9s, 2 forwards in the back and stuff like that. I'd say, you know what, beat them on the counters attack and control the game. Could even concede possession for, I'm not saying concede possession the entire game, but say, concede possession and control it, neutralize it in the middle, and just beat them in the back. I mean,
I don't think he'll go with two
Steccato?
forwards this match.
You want to do that in the home games?
The way they played against Canada?
Well, I've always said this, and the reason I say this is because and I'm going back to La Puente and stuff like that. Back in the Nick Oxford days, and obviously when he was a coach, I have a lot of respect for La Puente as a tactician, because one of the things that sometimes how he would break the bunkers was not throw more men, not throw more forwards. He would sometimes say, okay, well, he would just concede possession and get them out. He would basically just, get them out by just giving the ball, back to them, and that way they're forced to, to advance and go up. So I'm like, well, these guys, the endurance, they're gonna have to play up. So I said, take advantage of it.
Ronnie, I don't think those teams are that naive anymore, and they might just give the ball right back. Which I think you don't want to give up points.
Is it going to be like the Sergeant Bilko boxing match? Like, I don't know if you guys ever watched that movie, where two boxers are both in the fix, and they're not trying to hit each other, and then they both hit each other, and they both knock each other out.
Yeah, I don't. I gotta be honest. I don't know if, in that sense, if the Argentina game is much of a parameter, because we all know. I don't think Honduras, at least this version of Honduras, is all that great in possession. In that sense, I think that if anything, if he's going with the idea of maybe backing off a little bit and letting Honduras come so we can have spaces, I still don't think he'll revert to that back line of three. I think, if anything, he'll really will employ more wide midfielders, in a sense of like maybe a Dam or an Aquino. Maybe Corona. I don't know. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about maybe he won't start, maybe he will. I think that overall the pressure is on Honduras a little bit more than Mexico, and I think that will work to our favor. And one thing about Osorio is that he does have a very good capacity to read games as they are progressing, and so if whatever he comes out with doesn't seem to be working, he will make changes. He will definitely change things up, and it really won't be man-for-man subs in order to maintain any sort of tactical discipline. It'll be, much like we saw on Friday against El Salvador, it'll be a different tactical approach, hoping to find something else, something different. But I don't expect it to be an overly complicated game. I think that Honduras is going to look. They're probably going to come out with some variation of that 4-5-1, because they know that Mexico can do damage, on different levels. And at the end of the day, I think with Torres Nilo being injured, I think this is a pretty good opportunity for Osorio to simply just do the logical thing and slide Layun to the left and maybe play Dedos on the right and sort of see how that works out. I mean, if Torres Nilo's out and Jimenez is out, I think more than anything, Jimenez is the one who's going to change things up, because he likes Jimenez a lot. He likes his work rate, and he likes what he brings to the table. And he's probably was planning on using him from the start tomorrow. And if he's out, then you can probably expect definitely Chicharito will start. And I wouldn't be surprised if Oribe starts, which I'm not sure he deserves to after Friday's game.
You guys didn't like Fuentes?
He thought Fuentes was good. I thought Fuentes was decent, but honestly, I don't know, if El Salvador was much of a parameter. And I don't really know if I want to blood him in a game where this is the best chance for Mexico to pick up 3 points in Honduras probably over the last 2 to 3 World Cup cycles. So at least. So there's got to be a good balance of cautious but also incisiveness. And I'm not sure that Fuentes, he could, if he starts and he does well, I think we'd all be a little bit surprised. Not because of his quality or perceived lack of quality, simply because the logical move is to simply slide Layun to the left. He plays in a flat back four in Porto as a left back. And why would you not? This is almost like the sky and the stars and the gods telling them just slide him back over to the left and play.
And that's my point. That's my point. I said there's no, Osorio doesn't need to reinvent the wheel. Go with what works right now. Because I mean, if he gets the 3 points, if they get the 3 points in Honduras tomorrow, you can pretty much guarantee Mexico in the hex.
Sure.
And that, I mean, if anything, get the 3 points tomorrow, and then I understand he wants to start, I guess, doing what he wants to do with the team, and he's entitled to it. He's the coach, but I don't see the need for him to start experimenting. Not now. And I mean, you have there's Partido Molero games. That's what they're there for.
I'm sorry, Ronnie. This is only his second game with the national team, so I think. Yeah, I mean you're right. Maybe just stick with the guy that's been playing that position. I mean he's not have, but defending wise, I don't think that's his best quality. But again, this is CONCACAF, so Layun's level, I think even defending wise is not really a liability.
I brought up last week. I brought up La Volpe's tenure at Boca Juniors. How basically he was given a team. It was an unstoppable team. Every tournament that Basile played, well, they lifted. They won the thing, whether it be Sudamericana, whether it be Libertadores, whether it be league. And then La Volpe came in basically with the league already almost wrapped up, and well, he threw it away.
He changed everything.
Exactly. He changed.
And now they sing songs to his mother, right? Every time they see him.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, to me, it's like that. I said, you know what? I said, Osorio. I said, he doesn't need to be changing things up right now. He said, just,
Hey, dude.
Yeah.
But this goes back to what La Puente said. Hey, this group, they're not that good. What they've been doing the last World Cup is not that good. So I think that gives Osorio kind of license to change things up, because I mean one of the biggest maybe one of the best reputations as far as Mexico managers is concerned. He's pretty much throwing the whole players under the bus.
Honestly, I don't even think Osorio cares what La Puente says.
No, I wouldn't.
No,
I wouldn't
right.
if I was
If Osorio really cared, he wouldn't have started criticizing the Mexican coaches from day one.
No, but he didn't though. Let's not be disingenuous about it. He was asked about his experience as a coach and specifically why there are so many Colombian coaches that are coaching outside of Colombia right now, and why they are not coaching the national team. And he said simply that, given the nature of this is natural over Latin America, simply because they couldn't find opportunities in Colombia, so they just branched out, and that's true. And he said that Mexican coaches could benefit from the same. If they don't feel like they're getting the same recognition at home, they can simply branch out. And I mean,
but he used complacency, meaning they're happy with getting the big paychecks here.
Is that a lie? Is that not true?
No, well, it's not complacency. I mean, if you have South America, and I don't want to, get into this all again, but if you're having Matosas, if you're having, these coaches that are not want to coaching and they could coach in their countries, but they know that they can get paid more. They know that they can get paid more money in Mexico. Right. I mean, that's
but
I mean, goes against your point. Actually, they come here. To get money.
I don't even think his comments are that negative. It's just the press taking things out of context. Like, for example, Tomas Boy's interview. You gotta take the tone. Hold on. Let me just express it. You gotta take the tone of the conversation into context. For example, Tomas Boy, they asked him, "Hey, what do you think about Osorio?" He goes, "You know what? I don't know anything about him. I don't know how they heard about him." That's basically his point. And then they come out with, "Hey, Tomas Boy says that no lo conocen. How why the hell did they pick that guy?" And that's not really what Tomas Boy was saying. He was just saying, "You know what? I can't comment because I don't know anything about him. I don't know how the federation, through his name, and so hopefully." And I don't think he was kind of neutral about it, just like, "Hey, I don't know anything,"
Right.
I think the press does that. I mean, sometimes there is something there, but I think in this case, it's just nothing, man.
Well,
Because
let
I've
me
never,
bring this.
to me,
I'm going to bring this back to the Honduras game real quick, and the only sensible thing about playing Layun on the right again would simply be the matchups that he would face on his side of the field, and that would be the only thing where you could say, well, okay, that makes sense. Going up against Emilio Izaguirre, I guess, you battle speed with speed. But at the end of the day, I'm with Ronnie on this one, and I think that this is a great opportunity for Osorio to just sort of appease everybody, and not that he has to, but to make things a little bit easier on himself. Because at the end of the day, if he plays a unit on the right and Mexico wins 2-3-0, there is not going to be a lot of room for criticism anyway. But if it doesn't go well, he's simply going to expose himself unnecessarily. Whether or not we agree that, we can all agree or disagree that maybe it's not a big deal to play the unit on the right, or it is a big deal, or it's a big change, or it's not. It's sort of an unnecessary way for him to expose himself. But if it works, we're not going to be really talking about it next week.
Well, here's my problem with Layun playing on the right. Well, obviously, he's right. Obviously he's right-footed. So really, all he's going to be doing is basically just throwing crossing into the box. Sending crosses. Well, as opposed to if he's on the left side, not only can he equally center the ball center to the box with his left naturally, he can also cut inside and go for the mid-range shot. So I mean, you're basically he can be deadlier in two ways as opposed to one. Now, I'm not saying that you can't strike with his left because he has before. But I'm just saying that he's better when you're doing obviously with your natural foot.
Right, but one of the things Osorio talked about when a couple of weeks ago was the fact that one of the main reasons he wants Layun on the right is because on the left, whether it's as a left back or as a wing back, he tends to end up occupying the same spaces as Guardado when Guardado pushes up. And I think that's an excellent observation because he does that. He does that, and all it really ends up doing is slowing down whatever transition we can get forward. And it happened a lot during the Gold Cup. And it's an issue for me because if you win the ball back and are moving into transitioning into the offense quickly, Layun doesn't release the ball quickly. He's a guy that gets a lot of touches on the ball, and that's fine in some situations, but if the idea is to get the ball to the forwards quickly, that's not a strength Layun has. And he's still, there's remnants of that he still does it at Porto, except that he's not doing it as much, and he's also getting the trust of his teammates over there. With Mexico, he feels more confident, and I don't personally like that when we build an offensive play, and by we, obviously, I'm not a part of the team, but as a fan, I don't like the fact that it always ends up at the feet of Layun whenever the ball's on the left, and that's usually where the play dies. There is not a lot of we can look at his play with Porto the past couple of weeks, but there's a greater sample size of what he's done with Mexico over the past year that indicates that he does have trouble letting go of the ball in a timely fashion. And so if by putting him on the right means that he's simply going to just occupy the flanks and quickly put the ball into an offensive position, that's fine by me if it works. But if it doesn't work, then the natural progression would be to simply slide him back to the left and just drill it into his head to get rid of the ball quicker. But he does, the truth of the matter is he does end up occupying a lot of the spaces that Guardado does, and that's, to me, that's sort of redundant because that's what happens is when you lose the ball, they're both out of position. And if they lose the ball because Layun can't get rid of it quickly enough, that's even more of a problem for me.
Well, I think Layun has been playing really well in Porto recently on the left, and not just with shots like cutting back and shooting, but he made a couple of good assists to the guys in the center, like almost typical of Rafa Marquez type assists, like over the top and for their forwards to score goals.
Sure.
And I remember one cross, I think it was with Mexico, where he hit it with his left foot for, I forget if it was Vela or Chicharito for a goal, and I don't even remember the game, but he's made some good crosses. I think we tend to remember a lot of the bad crosses that he does with his left foot. as well as Aguilar would do some horrible crosses. But I think there's more benefits with him on the right or on the left, and then Guardado not necessarily getting too close to him, but being more in the center.
Now,
Yeah,
if the
if you're
problem is
Osorio, I'm sorry. If you're Osorio, do you want Tecatito with the ball at his feet, or do you want Layun with the ball at his feet?
that's kind of
Make stuff
the
happen.
thing, you know.
but here's the thing: if you're having a problem, with him, keeping the ball too long, it's because your other players are not rotating fast enough. So basically, you're rather than playing with 2 9s, which I'm against, play with a 1 9. You have your 7, and you have your basically your 7, your 9, and your 11 basically
Your
rotating.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I think that it's an issue with movement
Yeah.
at times, but it's all. I mean, I do think that, and I don't want to be redundant here, but I do think that Layun has that. That's one of the things that he has been, like Beto said, he's been sharpening that at Porto. But here's my point. If you look at what Delos did when he came in for 20 minutes on Friday, he was pumping the ball in early on the run, like we talked about last week. Filtered pass onto him, he takes a touch, and then he's putting the ball in, from 30, 20, 25, 30 yards out. Layun doesn't really do that, but he's done it at Porto, which is kind of what's a little weird to me, because he had 2 of his assists, I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, back-to-back games were with early crosses, where he wasn't simply just diddly down on the ball and taking touches. It was simply like he got the ball, looked up, pumped it in. I think that's what Osorio is looking for, which is something that Layun is capable of doing. I think we just want to see more of that. We want to leave the offensive build-up to the offensive players. Layun can be a complement to that, but he should not be the guy that's executing a play at the end of a passing sequence or a counterattack or a transitional play.
You're saying he's not the Mexican equivalent of Roberto Carlos
No,
or
he's
Emerson?
not. No, he's not. He's got some good qualities, but I personally don't want him to be the guy who pulls the trigger. That's what I'm saying, simply.
You know what I'm wondering? If he will even play, because, I mean, you think his confidence is shaking right now, because he really didn't look comfortable on Friday at all.
Yeah,
I don't think he's gonna play.
He didn't look very comfortable. But I would like to see at least a few more games of him playing on the right before we can say whether or not it's a failed experiment. I mean, part of me does think that it is a bit of a waste of time, but I mean, who knows?
I personally hope that he actually does get another run playing on the right, because I think, at least judging by Osorio's words, I honestly don't see him changing his mind on this.
I agree.
I don't see him playing on the left ever, unless there's a real string of injuries that literally forces him to. I don't think philosophically, I think he's really dead set on not playing someone that's not naturally left-footed on the left. So I think he's going to go with Fuentes, even though I personally was really unimpressed. I personally actually liked what Lopez did on the right, but I think we're probably going to see both Lopez and Fuentes. I don't think they're going to give Layun the start. He'll give Layun the start.
You missed el globito that Fuentes did on those Salvadoreños?
Yeah, the sombrerito, man.
Yeah.
He had a couple of nice defensive plays too in the second half. But yeah, I mean, I'm with Dan on this. I'm at the end of the day, if the options Fuentes or Layun on the left, I mean, I think it's almost a no-brainer. But I'm willing to give Rosario the benefit of the doubt on this one.
He's got Torres Nilo, right?
Torres is apparently injured.
Torres Nilo is also in the squad, right?
He's injured.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's injured, yeah. Which is what the problem is now, because I think it's pretty clear at this point what Osorio wants from his fullbacks, and the primary option is for them to get down and put crosses into the box. Cutting in is probably the secondary option. So if Layun can adapt to that, I think he can make it work playing on the right. So one thing about Layun we all know at this point is that any challenge that he's faced, he's been able to overcome, whether it's on the pitch or off the pitch. So I'm not ready to write him off, but I do have my doubts about whether or not it's going to work out for him on the right.
on Football Total, and this is just all speculation. They're saying that it would be Miguel Layun on the right, Ayala and Moreno in the middle, Luis Fuentes on the left for the defense, and then in the midfield, Gallito, Herrera, and Guardado, and then up top, Vela, Tecatito, and Oribe with Chicharito on the bench. That's what Football Total says.
So Oribe would be the center forward.
No, Uribe looked terrible, man.
Man,
Uribe
my-
looked terrible. I think. I don't
My
know if
biggest
he
gripe
plays.
with Osorio right now.
He was a tronco in that game, man.
He
Yeah,
was terrible.
Ayala was trash too, man. Like I really thought that that's actually his biggest fail of Osorio to date is that lining up Ayala. That was just not a good call. In my
Is that because he's
Like,
Tigres, man?
yeah, it sounds like you're saying that because I think defensively he
Yeah.
wasn't bad. I think he had some. The few times El Salvador did try to get forward, Ayala was decent. And I've lost a little faith in Ayala after the Copa America because he really, especially the game against Ecuador, he was the one who gave that game away. And I'm not sure about his national team future really, but I thought he was okay. I don't know if I would go with him against Honduras. But maybe he finds a little bit of confidence under Osorio and he'll surprise us. I mean, he's at a prime age right now. At the very worst, he could be a good backup. I don't see him as a starter, really. I don't see him. I see guys like Salcedo over him. I don't see him as a starter.
He should just be sent back where he came from. Because seriously,
Didn't Hugo Ayala had a couple? Hugo Ayala had a couple runs, didn't he? Where he kind of try to help in the build up and surprise
He found
Salvadorian defense.
I think
he
he had a
found-
header even that he had a chance to even score, but he missed.
Yeah, he missed that one. It went a little wide, but it was wide open.
He missed a
You're
header.
right, man. It's just I don't know. I'm not. I had big hopes for him. He was looking like a very promising player, but he hasn't reached that level that we expected of him. But I really don't know if he's the right call in Honduras because he's a little slow-footed and he tends to get lost and he kind of just sometimes it's like he's playing video games in his head and like things pass him by, and I don't think that's the right game for him against Honduras, to be honest.
He's playing Tetris.
He's playing like Tetris in his head and something. Yeah, he's just like a minute or two in between the games, and he's just like, oh, what happened? Oh shit, yeah, right. Yeah, I gotta play. I don't like that. I don't like when defenders sort of tune out like that. And for a guy with he's got a very good skill set, but something is not quite right about him as a player. And again, I don't think this Honduras team, this might be a good sort of test for Mexico in the sense that we can get 3 points, but it could be one of those Massa moments where a brain fart here or there, and you end up you end up leaving with 1 point.
Wait a minute. It wasn't a Massa brain fart, dude. That was Carlos Costi.
I know, he dove, I get it, but Massa has had his moments,
In that state. Yeah, but I mean, in that game, you can't ask Massa to not mark the guy. He can't let him drive through and take a shot. Which
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, Massa, I'm sorry if you're listening to this. I know you had a decent game 2 years ago in Honduras, but I mean, generally speaking,
it's hard to
Massa. That's one of his biggest. One of the biggest things about Massa was that he kind of tuned out during crucial moments at times, and it's just like it doesn't matter if he played well for 80 minutes, 85 minutes. There was a few minutes there where he just kind of like, he was just chasing butterflies, and you're like, yes, Juan's right. That wasn't particularly his fault, but in generally speaking, the point stands. I mean, I think that Ayala has that same sort of trait to him. There, he just kind of goes missing for a little bit there, and that's what can end up, costing you a game. And that's, I think Reyes can also do that, but I think to a much lesser extent. So I'd rather risk it with Reyes than to go with Ayala.
with Massa Ayala. Reyes would probably Reyes would probably fit his game plan a little better. Ronnie was talking about maybe being a little bit more vertical against teams that are trying to bunker, and I think that was kind of the approach because I know in the Twitter chat, Jolie and I think Ronnie they brought up that it looks like puro pelotazos, but really there were a lot of them came from Ayala, which I think that's kind of his role right now
Yeah.
to kind of distribute from the back and find
Okay, no,
Yeah,
Rafa
so that,
King
Marquez,
or
that
find
just
Rafa,
Chico.
yeah.
Ayala.
Yeah, but the thing
Yeah,
is, like, I don't
well,
know. I
but
don't know
see,
if I would say they
Rafa's
were.
injured.
Yeah, right. But the thing is, like during El
Rafa's
Salvador,
injured.
people were saying that there was puro pelotazo. I don't really see it that way. I mean, a
Yeah, I
30-yard
don't
pass
either.
to the foot of your wide midfielder, that's not really a pelotazo, in my view.
Yeah,
So I
well,
don't
it's
know.
very direct, very vertical.
It was you sort of you're jumping a line, you jump into midfield to get the ball to the forwards quicker. If you do that repeatedly and it's not accurate, then that's a problem. But if you're connecting the passes and you're taking advantage of the space, and it's not really a pelotazo in my point of view.
No, I agree. I'm just mentioning that these guys, they brought. I think that was Hugo Ayala's role was to distribute, which
Yeah, no, it's sort of that
again, Chris,
Rafa kind of thing.
this is
Yeah,
well this is why I always bring up Jonathan Dos Santos, man. That's exactly what he'd be able to do, sitting from deep, in the pivote role. And I'm
Hey,
gonna keep hammering on that every chance I get.
well, on that note, Tom Marshall, from training, he said that the lineup that they were using was JDS was in it, but it was Talavera, Lopez, Castro, Moreno, Fuentes, Reyes,
no,
Guardado, JDS, Tecatito, Jimenez, Peralta.
we take out
No HH.
Castro and put Vasquez. We're good.
Well,
So wait, Vasquez is in there too. What's the midfield?
No, Castro, Alejandro Castro.
Guardado, JDS.
I don't know how I feel about Alex Castro.
I know.
I'm not going to
Right.
pay much attention to that because the lineups that he was using in practice for the first El Salvador game,
Yeah, they were all over the place.
yeah, they were all over the place. I'm not putting much stock into that. But anything else? Anything else we want to say about the Honduras game before we
What do
move
you-
on to the next?
Were you guys surprised by Moises Munoz being the starting keeper?
No,
No,
not really.
Ochoa's been not playing, so he didn't deserve to start.
Now, do you guys think Mexico's goal will be they will see more shots on goal in the Honduras game?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Mexico had quite a Well, here's the thing. There's not a lot we can discern from the El Salvador game, but at least if we take that really small sample size and compare it to, and it's not fair, but if we compare it to what we've seen in the last qualifying cycle, chances were created. We did have some penetration into the offensive third, and the team didn't
wasn't
really
very
look
deep,
unsettled. All you
I
need
was
is
gonna
a
say
tip,
that's what
right?
she said.
All you need is the tip. The tip is enough, right? I thought there was again, it's just a very small sample size, but there was a little bit of a progression there. I'm not ready to attribute that to Osorio. I'm ready more than anything to say that the players are much more aware of what could go wrong for them in the hex, or at least in the qualifiers, and there is sort of a greater amount of concentration and willingness to take a little bit more risk offensively. Not entirely sure it's Osorio, to be honest, but the players, I think, do know what is at stake, and they know that they don't really want to go through what happened last time.
Christian, do you think Osorio ever really plays defensively? At least from a little I gather, he doesn't seem to be very concerned with.
He doesn't believe in playing defensively. Even though he's a guy that likes to adapt his teams and his lineups to sort of counteract whatever strengths the opponent may have, he will never really be defensive. It's not really a thing that he liked or he believes in. But again, the thing is, like, he can put out an offensive lineup, quote unquote, and as the game develops, the players may simply naturally begin to drop back, and kind of like what Miguel Herrera was saying during the World Cup, when they questioned him about taking out Gio and putting Aquino in, and he said that's not a defensive sub. And technically speaking, he's right. He didn't throw Aquino out there to be a defender. He told him to go out there and help.
He took the bait.
Right. And it's simply the pace of the game dictated by Holland meant that all the lines got compressed further and further back. And that's So it seems like it was a defensive sub, but it really wasn't, at least on paper. But that's not the way it played out. So yeah, Osorio, at least from the beginning, he will not be defensive. But that's one thing from the way that he would sort of do it, and the way that it happens on the field. It could be something different.
Hey, do you guys think Talavera will be the starting keeper? Isn't he a
I would
little
go with
better at
Talavera.
corners?
I would go with
Is
him.
he a little better at corners? Or just for this game?
But
No,
what's the height advantage here from Honduras? I'm not entirely sure there is much of a height advantage.
Moy's been fine. I mean, he's been, doing really well with his club for the last 3-4 years. I
Even after the car accident.
there's like really no point. I mean, right now you can go with Talavera's, obviously, he's a fine choice too, but Moy, he's fine. Memo's fine.
Osorio did say there are going to be some changes. Some of them are going to stay, but which is sort of like, I guess, what we were complaining about, I guess, last week about Osorio, that too many changes and things like that. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Talavera in there.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised by anything at this point, which is kind of cool, but it isn't.
I still got my fingers crossed that we'll see Ochoa.
Vela is a 9.
I wouldn't start Vela, to be honest. I don't think he had a particularly good game.
At the 9, dude.
I don't think he had a particularly game. Yeah,
He looked better once, because I think there was a lot of congestion in the beginning, and obviously he was getting basically, kind of pressed out of the game. There was no space on his wing, and Tecatito, they were kind of leaving Tecatito open, which a lot more room.
Yeah. No, I think. But no, you're right. Vela had a better game once they moved to a 4-3-3, but I still am not sure that he deserves to start based on his overall performance. I think you can give, if you're looking for width and someone that can give that to you on both sides of the ball, I think you can go with either, I think Jurgen Damm could be a good option in that sense. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
You don't want to commit to saying Aquino, huh?
Aquino, no, por Dios, no. I don't know. I mean, I would love for him to have a really, really good game, and I could be like, okay, I was wrong. I will gladly admit I was wrong. I just don't know if it's going to happen. I don't see his strengths in the league he's shining in the league right now. I'm not entirely sure that the things that he does well, he'll do them well enough at the international level, even if it is the CONCACAF level. That's just my opinion.
He was good enough to help to be key in the gold medal, man. Hey, don't sell him short.
No, of course. No, he had a tremendous game. Definitely the gold medal final, but
and the semifinal too.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like even the Senegal game, if you think about it, like if a team wants to shut him down, I think it's a lot easier for a team to shut him down than it is for him to sort of overexert himself to do things better or well enough to beat his physical limitations.
If if Osorio plans to press the Honduras, I think just Aquino's work rate is just a bonus on that, and it fits in perfectly to that type of game plan because that guy is he's got an engine on him. He never say die attitude.
I'm perfectly willing to come on here on Wednesday night and tell you guys that I was wrong. But if he does play, I hope he does it well. But I have my doubts about him.
Yeah, he needs space to play, and they're gonna if they bunker, then he's not gonna get that space. Then Tecatito needs to do his magic, which I didn't think he played too good in El Salvador, but he had some good. I think he almost tunneled 2 people at the same, or one right after the other, which was pretty cool. But
I think he did beat his defender.
Yeah, but he bumped in his
Maybe his final pass wasn't the best, but I mean, it seemed like he got past the right back every single time he went up against him.
Yeah, he had on his pocket, man. He's just a joy to watch. I think offensively he was our best player. I think when it came to 1v1 duels, I mean he did whatever he wanted mostly. I don't know. I mean, I think I'd bring him off the bench against Honduras. I think he can do some damage there, but it really is going to depend. I mean, you know, we got so used to Miguel Herrera sort of giving us a lineup like 3-4 days in advance. I don't know what to expect right now as regards to tomorrow's game. And we're probably not even going to know until, like, I think on Friday I was looking, and I don't know, at one point it was like half hour before the game, and I was like, oh, well, that's the lineup. Okay, that's what he's going with, I guess.
One thing I wanted to bring up was I'm not sure if it's well, I do think it's relevant with the small amount of time between games is the weather. It seems like the game's going to be played at high noon or something.
Yeah, 3 o'clock Eastern time. So I think today at around that time it was around 40 degrees, 39, 40 degrees with a decent amount of humidity. So
maybe playing some fresh legs isn't such a terrible idea.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as long as it works, you know.
Yeah, I know. That's a big if.
Yeah, I mean, Honduras. I mean, if we talk about Honduras, they had a pretty terrible game against Canada, and Canada's a team that has been making slow, incremental gains over the past year, and I'm not entirely surprised that they beat Honduras. I'm just surprised by the way Honduras played. It was really like I don't. Given the way the national teams work and how limited amount of time they have to work and train, I don't really foresee a much better performance from Honduras. There will be a lot of effort, sure, because they're playing at home and it's Mexico, but I still don't think that they're going to have a much, much better performance in that sense. So there's a lot of things that Mexico can exploit there as long as the right combination of players are on the field.
Hey, that Hacha might be sharp, though, come tomorrow.
Wait,
I
what?
think they better be careful. I think if they don't manage a tie against Mexico, I think the qualifying into the Hex is going to get real complicated for them because I'm thinking most Hondurans probably had Canada circled as one of those games that you should be thinking you're going to take something out of that game if you really want to get out of the group. Which
makes it even funnier when you look at like the covers of the newspapers in Honduras. They had I think the one today said. Had a graphic of a baby hand and a grown man's hand, and it said, "Say hello to Daddy" or something like that. Meaning Mexico hasn't won her in, I don't know, 50 years or whatever. And they're talking about how Mexico's afraid when they go down there. I mean, no. What's going to happen is probably I think Mexico is going to pull out a win. I'm whether it's 1 or 2 goals, I'm expecting a win. To be honest, I mean a tie is also fine. But I think Dan is on point. I think if Honduras doesn't get 3 points out of this game, it's going to be very complicated for them to even qualify to the Hex.
So they might come out really aggressive, really wanting the win, trying their best, and maybe like what Dan was saying, an alternate lineup. Well, not a fully alternate lineup, but with some different players, and with maybe Chicharito not playing or coming in as a sub, might save him from getting hacked and injured. Or other players hacked and injured, because if they start, which I think I agree with you that Mexico will probably win 1-0, 2-1 or something like that, and if that happens and they get desperate, could be some hard tackles, some injuries.
The Lumberjacks are going to come out, man.
That's the whole Nasraya's whole thing is like materia prima and you know the strength and the physicality of these dudes, and that's legit, man, because these guys are huge and strong.
That's how Chicharito got his back broken by one of them pushing him.
His broken clavicle.
I still remember that dude
it was the
that blew a kiss at Cuauhtemoc.
Yeah.
That guy was built, man.
Yeah, he was.
Oh,
yeah. He was a big boy, yeah.
So, on to, well, we've gone almost an hour. Any other insights into this? If not, the only other topic that I thought of other than these 2 games was maybe the league. Pumas is going to win versus America, I'm sure, on Saturday.
Sure, huh?
Do you know, is the French game still going to be on tomorrow?
Yeah, they say they will.
In England? Yeah.
Yeah,
We're going to see the La Marseille.
The Belgium-Spain game got canceled today, so that's not going to be played tomorrow. But the France-England game...
I mean, I will say this, man. I was, Tigres, man. They got a good player with Guignac, dude. And when he scored the second goal and he threw up the
Libres y
the
locos.
signs, yeah, the Libres and Locos. I mean, that was pretty cool to see. But unfortunately, what happened, with Paris, kind of like put everything in perspective. But I was glad to see Guignac play.
Yeah, he's been a stud, man. He's taken it very seriously, more seriously than even some of the Brazilians and Argentines that have come in recently to Liga MX, which is, like you said, it kind of puts things in perspective a little bit. He's been a great asset for Tigres, and I think it could be a potential market that could be exploited if teams want to spend money in that sense. I've always been surprised that Liga MX hasn't done more to market the league outside of this continent, because the pace of the game is a little bit slower, but there are some very good teams and there's some good players, and there could be a market for. I mean, if people in Europe are willing to watch MLS games at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning, they might be willing to watch a Tigres Monterrey or America Chivas or what have you, and at least have some sort of reference point with some of the European players if they're willing to come here.
Well, what
Hey,
Guignac said, in an interview was that he said, he obviously mentioned the quality, like you have a lot of good Mexicans, you have a lot of South Americans from Colombia, Brazil, Argentina, and then he said that then you realize why the Mexican team does what it does at the international stage, referring to the World Cup, and he's making reference to the MFL, the Liga MX, basically being on par with some of the French teams, like the top teams. And again, like you say, I don't understand why Mexico doesn't pursue more European players from tier 2, tier 3, leagues. I mean, I know there was a while that there was a
doesn't
point
America
where,
do that though?
well, I mean, I remember what was it? I think it was Vucetich, if I recall correctly, where he had like 5 Croatian players, or remember there was like 5, players from the ex-Yugoslavia that were on a team. Shit, I'm trying to remember.
Bora.
Couple,
No, I'm just
no,
joking.
no, 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 no. No, this was a couple years. They're like Zdanko and stuff like that. I mean, I remember there were a couple of Croatian players, but I mean, obviously, I mean, they should be going, to even some of the Scandinavian countries. I mean, because of the climate over there, their leagues aren't really, they don't really operate with the traditional calendar. So it'd be nice to see more, like you said, stop recruiting in South America. I mean, still doing it, but not as much, and go maybe some parts of Africa, Europe,
It could be
because
attractive
obviously they're.
for the players also.
Well, I
I think
mean,
it could be attractive because
Hey,
they see Gignac dominate the Mexican league, and they're maybe
Galusha.
another player that may be struggling in Europe goes to Mexican league and say, "Oh, I got the skill to dominate this lesser league," not to diss the
well,
Mexican league.
Galusha and
America
Galusha and
brought
Billy.
in, yeah, Galusha and Bilic. America brought him in, right? I
Well, the
remember.
thing they have brought in African players before, um,
Those
and
guys came with Ben
obviously,
Hocker, though, didn't? Wasn't
yeah, they
he
came
the
with
one who referred them over?
Ben not get. Well, I know he coached them. I don't.
Leo Ben Hocker.
Yeah, they were Ben not get. They were really good. Um, no, but here's the thing: is they've brought in Africans, African players before. And most times it didn't really work out. And the reason I say, it'd be better, the reason, obviously it works so well with, the Latin American players, but even if they go with the European players is, the Mexican league is a league where it's not as much, so much physicality, but more so smarts and, technique and stuff like that. So I guess one of the reasons, I guess the African players that have gone to Mexico haven't really done all that well, with the exception of those two. Is because that comment, there's a comment that a commentator made a couple weeks back. that he caught a lot of crap for, and he actually got fired. But then when he spoke about the black player, do you guys remember that?
Yeah, I
Hey,
remember
you,
that.
you,
Well,
hey,
well,
hey,
he,
Ronnie, hey, Ronnie, but isn't Jackson Martinez kind of fit that mold of that type of player, the power, the
no, no, no,
speed?
no, 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 no.
That guy
No,
was,
what I'm talking. No. Jackson Martinez, obviously, you're talking about the Colombia one, right?
yeah, the Colombian
Yeah.
guy.
Well, no, I mean, obviously, they're Latin American, and they have 100 years of of playing the game with and playing the right way.
But
But
I mean, his style
but
is that type of style.
the comment that the commentator made, which was unfortunate, but when you actually saw his interview and what he was trying to say is that these kids that are coming from these poor areas are not getting the proper training, and it's true. I mean, hell, even in some parts of Mexico, they don't have the proper coaching, they don't have the proper facilities and stuff like that. So when they go to leagues or other countries where it's a little bit more on the brain side and not so much on the physical side, they have a hard time adjusting. And
You, you know
I,
what, man?
what's it?
I kind of ascribe to that, like that type of training where you want to make the players think. But I don't know if you guys, there's a blogger. I don't remember his name, but I guess he's one of the youth coaches in Spain, and he said, hey, about that whole players that take their time to think. He goes, hey, dude, I don't want my players to think. I want them to just to like act fast and think less. Because I guess
No,
there was kind of a
no, you got
backlash that
It's
you got to
instinct,
think.
killer instinct, man.
yeah, that's basically what he have the instinct. Like it's if you think on the pitch, by the time you realize you made a decision, the opportunity is gone.
No, the thinking you do in your training
Yeah,
through
exactly.
repetitive,
Right.
and it becomes second nature. And that's the point, and that's obviously the point that people like Angel Capa and Pep Guardiola is that success doesn't just happen. You have to work we have to work for it, the repetition and repetition. La Volpe,
That's
obviously,
not
if you guys
thinking.
have ever seen, if you've ever seen La
That's
Volpe in a training session, I mean, that guy interrupts the practices a lot, is because I mean he basically wants to teach every little detail as to what the player's trying to do.
yeah. What they want is, but see what they're showing is behavior, and they want it to be intuitive. So they're taking the
Yeah.
thinking process out already because they're.
So
I mean, well, I don't know, La Volpe. Did you? I guess too, since you saw him train, was his training more read cues or repeat patterns?
that I remember, there was a lot of espacio reducido, short spaces.
Yeah.
There was a lot of set pieces. And obviously, it just depending different. I mean, I wouldn't, it's not like I saw his practices, like for like days on end. So I mean, I caught glimpses and pieces of his practices, But I mean, I remember he was just, he was impulsive. He would blow the whistle a lot. He would stop. He would, obviously scream at his players. Not Tuca, he wouldn't scream like Tuca, but he would basically, like, kind of like rhetorical questions, like, why did you do this? I mean, without, it's like, obviously he knows the answers, like, why did you do this? And not to make the player seem stupid, but basically, hey, you're out here to do a job, and I want you to think how to do your job.
Yeah.
So,
Think fast.
yeah, I mean, and that's what I mean. Going back to, I think, I mean, I hope Guignac, you know, I hope he, with Guignac, he spreads the word. It's like, hey, think of the Mexican League, because it would be nice to have more players from Europe in the Mexican League.
I think from the
Yeah,
from
but maybe
some of the team standpoints though, that maybe they should be going after that fringe player, for that fringe NT player that has something to play for, because I know some of the criticisms from some of the South Americans that come over to the league, they say that they're coming in there for the paycheck. Well, they know that most of the players aren't never going to get a sniff at their NT. Maybe if going after these guys that are on the brink of being on there, maybe you can get more of an effort out of them and not just that paycheck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're referring to Brazil and you're referring to Argentina, yeah. But if you're going for Paraguay, Colombia,
Well, that's
Uruguay
the
and
big
stuff like
difference.
that,
Those guys, they are getting the NT
the
players from those leagues,
I
so
mean those
that
guys. I
they're not
mean,
included in that because, I think about Cabañas and all those great Ecuadorian players that have been in the league. So yeah, I would say we are getting the best of those countries, at least to some degree. Not less so from Argentina and Brazil, obviously.
but
Which player
it
would you bring?
Hey,
what's
Like
that?
if, for example, if America was shopping for a player in Europe, which one would you bring?
Uh, right now,
they're not
Yeah,
all
like,
gonna work out though.
well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You bring, who do you think would work out? You know, like Tigres took a chance on Gignac, and it worked out for them. Who
well, I
would
mean,
you bring
obviously,
in?
Gignac had scored like almost 20 goals in his last season with Marseille. So, I mean, obviously, the guy could score goals in the French league, in the League One. Um,
It's
Like
got to be
honestly,
obviously,
someone not really well known.
I would
no,
bring
no, no,
Griezmann.
no. I
Griezmann's
mean,
too high up
honestly,
there.
honestly, right now, I don't want more foreigners in America. We have too many already in there. You know,
Well, in
there's
any
like
other
8 of
team,
them.
in any other Mexican team, like say, not to make it a retirement league, but say Griezmann comes when he's well right now instead of saying when he's older. He probably could go to say I don't know Atlas or something. I don't know, just any team and lift them up because pretty much Gignac is taking all the goal scoring for Tigres and lifting that team on his shoulders. And with some golazos, man, that guy's shooting like from outside, just all over
Well,
the place,
well,
scoring.
I wouldn't say he's carrying the team because remember he went into a team that was already fighting for the Libertadores and also lost a title, lost a final to America, within the last year. So he came to
Gignac?
a good team, but what's that?
No, I was just gonna
Gignac?
say Gignac is a good player, but obviously the one who's having a better season is Funes Mori. He's doing fantastic, phenomenal. And
Are
You know,
you,
you know, you know, you know who I would,
Say it, man, say it.
I, are you wearing the Monterrey shirt right now, or
He just kissed it, kissed the
do
crest.
you ever take it off? What's going on here, man?
what happened?
Well, I mean, yeah, yes, Funes Mori's having a tremendous season, but I think that Gignac has had a tremendous impact with Tigres, and I think that it's undeniable. I mean, the guy just got called back up to the French national team. Funes Mori is lucky if his brother calls him while he's with the national team. Let's be honest.
No, it is. It is. It's nice to see. It's nice to see. Players like, Gignac would be on the French team, and even like Argentina's. What's his name? The Nahuel. He was
But Funes
goalkeeper,
Mori,
and so it is nice to see players represent Argentina and stuff like that are in the Mexican league, and honestly Martino and the Mexican coach, the Argentine coaches in the past, they know the Mexican league. you know. So it's not like they haven't called the players before. Um, hell, even when when Chelito Delgado and them were there, I mean, there was a point where Cruz Azul had 3 players on the national team
Which
for Argentina.
brings me to the next question. In Copa America, like, wasn't the Liga MX the league with the most seleccionados for Copa America?
If the article, I never verified it, but the article that I read, it said that it did. It was the league with the most players.
there was a point where like most of the Paraguay squad was in Mexico. When you had Cabañas and gosh, I don't
Yeah,
remember all the names.
I mean
But
Dennis
was it
Canisa
Silva,
and Pablo da
Paulo
Silva.
Silva, or was it
Yeah,
Paulo
they
da
had Pablo da
Silva?
Silva. You had Dennis Canisa. You had obviously you had what's his name, Cabañas. I mean, you had a bunch of them. I mean, there was Ecuador's also had a bunch of them. Colombia, not as much, but did have quite a bit. But in the last 20 years, man, we've had a lot of players from Paraguay and Ecuador.
Yeah, we've had some Colombians too. Not as many on the national
Yeah,
team.
yeah.
Uh,
Rodallega, that guy was frustrating, man, to watch. Good thing he was on Atlas.
well, let's
See, the thing with
yeah.
the thing with the Colombian the thing with the Colombian players, it seems like they're hit or miss. You know,
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, the ones that come into the Liga MX,
Yeah,
I thought
um,
Dorlampa was doing pretty good.
he's
Teofilo.
okay. Dairo Moreno, I think Dairo Moreno has had a more over his time in Liga MX. He's been has had more impact than Pavon. But I mean, if anything, we should be looking to get more like Edwin Cardona's type of players because that kid is going to be something else. I mean, his impact when he came on against Chile was immediate, and Colombia is building her team around James, and he needs a partner. He needs someone that from the midfield can help him, and Cardona is going to be that player. And he's still very
What's
young. I
wrong
think
with
he's only
Quintero?
23.
What's wrong
hey,
with Quintero, man? That's why Peckerman frustrates me.
Darwin Quintero
hey,
is. There are players in the Colombian national team. There are some younger players that bring the same qualities that he does, and for some reason, just honestly, Peckerman is not really a fan of Quintero. And I mean, it'd be hard to justify him getting called up right now, given the season that he's had with America. You know,
No, the other Quintero, the young, gosh, what's his name? He was in
he's
Porto.
playing in France right now. He's actually playing pretty well. He is with the national team right now. Um, he's more of a specialist, really. I mean, ability-wise, you could even compare him almost to like Jesus Corona, but Jesus Corona is more dynamic and has more. Um, he's a more incisive player. Quintero is almost like an old school kind of number 10. You know, there's been a lot of talk about him being similar to Pibe Valderrama. So, I mean, those kinds of players nowadays, they're luxuries. There's not a player that you can really, and unless he's
No,
he's a very good player, but I mean, as a number 10,
dude, come on. This is why
no,
I hate Peckerman.
well, yeah,
System
Peckerman's
over
has,
quality players, man.
yeah, he doesn't he doesn't work well with very specifically sort of skilled players, but I mean so far it's worked out for Peckerman. So I mean if you look at the team that Colombia put out there against Chile, and I guess we could sort of move the discussion a little bit towards the South American qualifiers. The team that Colombia put out there against Chile only had 2 players that played in the World Cup. He's done, at least as of right now, he's looking to really rejuvenate the team. He put out there Jason Murillo, who's a young center back, and there's no more Yepes. He's playing Santiago Arias from PSV, the guy that plays with Moreno and Guardado. He put out this kid Torres, who played as a center mid. I think he's a player that will be on the radar for Mexican teams, to be honest, because he's a player that if we look at the Mexican under-17 team, this recent team, he's very similar to Cervantes, the center mid from Chivas. Obviously, just a little more mature and a little more polished, but he's a guy that plays equally well on both sides of the ball. I think he's a guy that if he doesn't start drawing interest from Europe, which I think he will probably end up in Mexico and use that as a stepping stone. I think he'd be a great player. He could really play well in Mexico. But
Hey,
Peckerman,
dude,
yeah.
all I heard from you was 100 excuses for Peckerman. Because, look, in the leg, and who was on the bench?
Well, there was some. Well, he started.
Jackson Martinez, dude.
Well,
Jackson Martinez. Why?
Well, no, but Jackson started against Chile, and he
He's
was.
injured now.
He was
He's
not
injured
good
now.
enough, right?
Yeah, but Jackson started against Chile, and he doesn't really fit what the team is doing, and I don't think he's going to have a lot more chances going forward because he played next to Muriel, who was the best player for Colombia, and that's another young forward who was also part of the 2011 under-20 team that got knocked out by Mexico. The team with James and Santiago Arias. I think actually Jason Murillo is also on that team. There are some interesting players for Colombia that are younger that are probably going to be getting chances over guys like Baca, surprisingly, and Jackson, and eventually Teo Gutierrez, because Teo Gutierrez
Probably,
is a guy that,
right?
but he's a guy that fits,
Dude, but it still doesn't explain why you have Falcao on the field and you have a beast center forward like Jackson Martinez on the bench watching the game, man. And then you bring in Teofilo instead of Jackson into the game.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm not, I mean, a year ago I would agree with you. I just don't think Jackson really fits into the quick transition that Colombia wants to play. It's a lot of like Oribe Peralta. He does a lot of things really well, obviously on a higher level than Oribe, but he doesn't fit the speed of the team. And you know, at the end of the day, I mean, this is a young man's game. You need speed. You need people that are willing to win those 1v1 duels. And after the game that Muriel put forward on Thursday or Friday, I don't think we'll be seeing a lot of Jackson in the upcoming games, because I think Muriel has really caught a lot of people's eyes after this performance, and I think that's what we're going to be seeing, especially with Peckerman. Peckerman's a guy that he's a little iffy, and I mean, he was already on a tightrope as it was with Colombia. The press is not happy with him because he doesn't spend a lot of time in Colombia. He has 7 assistants. His staff, his coaching staff, has 7 dudes that are tasked with going to the local games and scouting, and he's the kind of guy that will go to Europe and watch games or whatever, but people want him to be more involved with the local league and the players in the local league, and he doesn't seem to show a lot of interest, like at least, you know, being at the games, but he's using a lot of players from the league, and, you know, he's willing to use, like, you know, Cardona, who's a guy that doesn't play in Colombia, doesn't play in Europe, is sort of in between, but he's a guy that's really been working well for Colombia since the Copa America this summer. So I think we're going to see a lot of that going forward, a lot of these younger players, because Colombia's team at the World Cup was very sort of veteran heavy, and that's not going to get you to the World Cup. It might get you to the World Cup, but you can't take that kind of risk.
Oh, there it goes. You know what? Before we continue on the South American, I wanted to mention about the Liga MX clubs. You notice when Chicharito, when he moved to Bayer Leverkusen, one of the first things Bayer Leverkusen did on their social media is they made Spanish-speaking accounts. And I think Mexican clubs, maybe they don't realize, Liga MX clubs, they don't realize that maybe there's a market in English for their product. So, you know, these guys, they need to get on the ball. And
well, Ronnie will tell you,
guess,
Liga MX is go on.
I guess Santos is one of the only ones, right? They got an English-speaking media rep, social media guy.
Cholos has that one, dude.
They got Kim Tate.
Oh, and Cholos. Yeah, Cholos has the English-speaking Twitter account as well.
Johnny Rico, I think, does that Cholo stuff.
Yeah, that used to be Kim Tate, who now is at Santos. But the thing is, Tijuana has a somewhat decent contingent of American players on all levels, so it makes sense for them. I mean, if anything, like Ronnie was saying, I mean, like we were talking about a little while ago, if Liga MX can sort of tap into the European market and maybe compete for some of the players that are looking to go to MLS, there might be a market there. I don't know. I mean, if anything, they should look to expand and I don't know.
Somebody put out their camera.
No, it's an inside joke that, or Ronnie's
Look at the Google.
Look at the chat. Pictures in the chat.
Make it your profile picture. That way they'll be able to see it on the podcast.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's one picture with the dog and the baby. Just in case you can't see it, but
whose baby needs it?
I don't know. It's just some meme. It's inappropriate.
It's basically a dad joke about fags. Oh, well,
that'll be edited out.
Censor that out.
Well, I guess we run out of topics if we're talking memes and such now. So.
You know, I want to keep killing Peckerman. I absolutely do not like that guy. when
The
they were
Peckerman.
floating him as a name for Mexico. Go ahead, sorry, Brian.
No,
He
go
did
ahead. Go
well
ahead.
with
No, finish.
Toluca.
Yeah, his past decision making to me it shows that he's not a national team coach. He's probably maybe he listen. I don't know if it's promotores or what because he was keeping a healthy Jackson. I'm not talking about now. Just in the past, Jackson Martinez was a guy for Colombia, and he still kept trotting out Falcao. Obviously, there's some promotor deal going on there.
Yeah, there's a
There's
lot
no
of talk
way.
about that in Colombia. That he's linked. I think his son-in-law is a promotor, and there's talk about how some of the players that have come into the national team recently are represented by his son-in-law. So there's obviously a bit of a conflict of interest there. Would he have done a good job with Mexico? I think he would have. I think he would have. Um,
Just
at the
because
end
he's
of the
No.
day,
Colombian?
No,
you don't think so?
Peckerman?
Yeah.
No, I don't like that guy.
Yeah, I can tell you don't.
He doesn't. He
Alright,
doesn't like
I'm
him.
glad
What did he
Juan that
do
you
with?
He
got
does.
that out of your
Dude,
chest.
did he win with Toluca
He doesn't like him
under
because
Lebrija?
he doesn't like him because he doesn't like him because he's Jewish.
No, I didn't even know he was Jewish, dude.
Don't lie.
I didn't
don't
even
lie.
know, dude. I didn't know. I swear.
Tell us
I
what
hope
you
Right?
really feel,
I hope
man.
that's not the case.
It's my, I didn't even know. I don't remember him being Jewish.
Well, like,
But no,
do
I
you,
just have. Dude, did
do
he
you
win
think
with
that?
Toluca? What did he win?
He won your respect, right?
Absolutely not. My admiration. No, I'm sure he's good. I'm
Would you?
sure he's a
Well,
good
would you
coach.
take him
He's very
over Osorio right
experienced.
now? Would you be comfortable with Peckerman as a coach over Osorio right now?
I'd rather take Osorio.
I think the press would be a lot more comfortable with him right now. There would be less room for criticizing, whether it's warranted or not.
Peckerman has already managed the Argentina national team. He has a lot of experience. So I don't know. This guy Juan, probably Peckerman le metió el pecker a su esposa.
What did he do with Argentina? What did he do with Argentina in 2006?
He beat
He beat
Mexico,
Mexico with a wonder goal. With a wonder
That's
goal.
Yeah.
all
La
that I
Volpe
care about. After that,
with
I don't
it.
care.
Yeah, but
La
the thing
Volpe
you
took
could
his
say the
lunch
same.
and
You
beat
could
him with
say-
it.
No, you could. That was Mexico's best game in the entire World Cup, and we still lost. That's like the epitome of our history, I guess.
But it was a wonder.
Hey,
It was a wonder
you
goal.
know-
It wasn't Beckerman's game plan.
Yeah, it makes it. It
Hey,
makes
It
it
was La
easier.
Volpe's game plan.
La Volpe coached him, yes, I know. But that happened.
Beckerman, dude, he
La
had
Volpe
no
also
adjustments
Coach Bielsa, and I
La
know you
Volpe
love
in that
Bielsa.
game.
Yeah, but
Say that
if you look
again?
at Bielsa, he didn't have a good World Cup in 2002 with Argentina, and that's a guy that people were dying for. I mean, including myself, just a few months ago. I mean, again, I think it's all relative, and I mean, if given a choice, I mean, I would be interested to see what Peckerman could do with Mexico, especially with this generation.
You know what he would do? He'd get his son-in-law to sign a bunch of youth players, get them on the national team, get them sold. That's what he do. That's what he did with Colombia, right?
Yeah, that's really that's where that's how the conversation's going down there. Yeah.
Do you think Peckerman's going to go after naturalized players?
In
Yeah.
Colombia, or
No,
would he
no,
go
no.
to Mexico? Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
If they're
Yeah,
signed to him, yeah. If they're signed to his family, to his son-in-law's agency, yeah, most likely.
Yeah, he probably would. I think he would. But right now, I mean, is there a sort of a foreign player that figure like a winger that you would rather have in a national team compared to I don't know, Irving Lozano? I don't see
Honestly,
one. I really don't see one.
It's with what the amount of players that we have in Europe right now, I think it would be a slap in the face to even do it. Because
Absolutely.
we always say, oh, but we don't have players playing abroad, and I think right now would be a slap in the face, and I think he would bring a lot of criticism his way, something that he doesn't need right now. I mean, honestly,
Osorio? You're talking about Osorio?
Yeah, I'm talking about Osorio.
Well, 2 years ago. No, go on.
I think Osorio will win the crowd in Mexico if he does two things. Obviously, get to the hex. But if he, assuming we get to the hex, if we can beat the U.S. in Columbus, I think he'll win. I think he'll win a
Absolutely.
lot of
I think you're
a
right.
lot of hearts and minds.
And
Well,
by
you know
that,
what?
by that, Ronnie, you mean he will win you over? That's your barometer, right?
No,
No?
no,
What?
No.
Are you serious?
no,
What,
no,
do-
no.
what do you have to do? Win
Because
the
we
World
because
Cup?
Still want
because we
more? You would
qualified.
want more still? Yeah.
No, he would win me over. He would. Hey, Carrillo won me over when he lifted a title with America. Piojo Herrera, won me over when he won with an American. Obviously, actually, I would say that Piojo won me over his second season with the America, even though we lost in the semis. It was just you just started to see what he was doing with the team.
Right.
I would say that Osorio would win me over if he wins Centenario. Next year.
I
Copa
think
America
Minimum.
Centenario.
I think a
At
top four finish would be a decent. I mean, if we get to the final, that'd be great.
Not when it's your backyard. Really, if you think about it.
No, you're right. I mean, I think it'll depend on the quality of the teams, but I think that if he does well in the Copa America and he wins, I think it starts tomorrow. If he wins in Honduras and does well in Copa America I think if he wins in the U.S. in Columbus, I think that people will jump on a bandwagon.
Yeah, think about it. We haven't won in Honduras in 20-something years. So he
Mm-hmm.
wins in Honduras, he wins in Columbus, and obviously he wins the Centenario. I think I think Russia's guaranteed for him.
Yeah.
Even regardless of what he does at the Confederaciones.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know how
Unless
realistic
he slaps
the
Martinoli
Centenario is.
in the airport.
It's not
What's
exactly the Gold Cup. I'd be pretty content with a top four finish.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I think a semifinal finish would be great.
Well, let me ask you something.
He's got to make the final, man.
No, here's
Enough
what
of
I'm saying.
mediocre goals, guys.
Chile won at home, okay? Colombia won at home, okay? Really, although it's played in the U.S., you already know where the venues are going to be at. So
I'm with Ronnie on this.
it would be
We have to win
like the
this
closest thing. It would be like the closest thing of Mexico playing a Copa America at home.
Yeah,
So if Chile can win at home,
I think one of the big things though is depending on how they actually call the games, because if it's like a Libertadores type of deal, there's no way that Mexico's going to win that tournament. If it's played like South American style, I don't see Mexico doing all that well.
South American refs, you mean?
They reached the final before, though. I mean, when it was hosted in Colombia. What was it under Aguirre, right? That he got to the final, and then I think with Mejia Barón, right? They
93.
They reached the final.
I think it's a good goal, but to expect it,
Yep.
I don't know. I think that's a bit much though to expect it. Especially considering the last two showings. I know those aren't really fair barometers, but still, I mean, the last two have been pretty terrible. I guess maybe my expectations have dropped.
Hey,
We have high standards for Osorio.
hey, but I mean, is CONCACAF gonna allow Mexico to take their first team? Since it's being hosted here, I expect that they're gonna be like part of the contract requires.
CONCACAF
Well, there's no Gold Cup to get in the way either.
Exactly. So CONCACAF wants this tournament because eventually they actually want the Copa America to be the premier event of the Americas.
Yeah, Chuck Blazer's out of the picture, so there's not going to be any restrictions. The only restrictions will be which players go to the Olympics and which players don't. Really, that's
and that wouldn't even affect us really, as far as for this Copa Centenario, just a couple players, but I mean you're going to have the bulk of your players at
right.
the
No,
Centenario.
but you look at which players will be over age. I mean, we talked about some of the options. We thought Andres Guardado could be an option, Chicharito. I mean, those guys that are in Europe, it's unlikely they're going to play both tournaments. So who knows, in that sense. And also, like does Tecatito go to Copa America or does he go to the Olympics? Maybe some of the players that could emerge. Yeah, right. That's what I think too.
Honestly,
because he's age appropriate for Olympics.
We
Yeah,
have
he
we
did.
already have we already have gold in the trophy room. For the Olympics. I want Copa America.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You know.
You gotta
That
fight
means
Potro
that,
Gutierrez for those players, though, dude. I don't know if Osorio wins that fight.
yeah, I
Potro
agree.
Gutierrez is gonna be pushing for those players.
Yeah, we don't know what the
And
FMF has been talking about behind the scenes, or at least what they've promised Gutierrez as far as players go. But given the fact that the Copa America was sort of iffy for a long time, what happens now? I think that'll be an interesting discussion when the time comes for it because I'm with Ronnie. I mean, at this point, I would think the Copa America should take precedent over the Olympics because we already won it. So fuck it. Oh, you're gonna have to edit that out.
Whatever makes the most money.
Yeah, I actually agree with this too.
That's
We need
true,
to win
huh?
this Copa Centenario. It's a must-win for me, I think.
So that would mean that the only thing we haven't won at the senior level will be the World Cup.
Hey, that means Gio might come back to the national team eventually. Then, huh?
Well,
Right now, it looks like
yeah.
right now, it
Send
looks
them
like
to the
good
Olympics.
for him right now, right?
Nah, they don't send him to the Olympics. He already did that. He would be on the national team. Hey, by then he'll be playing. He'll be in rhythm, and if he's playing well, I could see him on the team.
And MLS might ask Mexico, hey guys, do us a favor, call him up.
Yeah, I
He's gonna be
imagine-
playing at MLS speed, man. Screw Gio.
Bueno, pues.
He needs to stop playing attacking midfielder and start playing forward.
You know what, guys? When
Hey.
when Piojo called up Kubo, I think he did some things well that I guess to me Mexican players they don't do well. He was playing with his back to goal.
Yep. Remember, he's still very young. He's gonna have a future with the national team. At one point, Chepo said that Raul Nava was gonna be the future number 9 of the national team. Well, I mean, he was way off. I think that Kubo has a chance to be that replacement for Chicharito at some point.
Yeah, I think
I can hear you guys cringing already. So
he deserved a better shot with Chivas, man. There were some things he was doing well. He just needed to. He wasn't getting out muscle. He wasn't getting thrown around like a rag doll.
Are we done for today?
Yeah, time to wrap it up.
Hey, hold on. One thing. Pern, are you gonna concede?
In regards to what?
You know what I'm talking about. Don't make me
About
drag.
what?
Don't make me drag this.
France.
about
Oh.
the conversation
Are
over
you
the
gonna
past
concede?
3 days.
There's nothing to concede, then.
Are you gonna concede?
So I guess no.
I already said my piece. There's nothing to concede.
What?
You said one thing, I said another.
Typical French and Belgian citizens with names like Abdul Mahad and Muhammad
Hamed Lavara.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. There's someone wrong on the internet. I'll be right back. Oh, it was a good show.
That's just gonna edit that out.
Yeah, make sure you edit this out.
Oh, yeah. Brought to you by.
I'm just
Soccer
hurt, man.
Chronicle.
People just don't want to concede to me, man. I'm hurt. I'm still hurt when Pedrito he didn't concede after the whole La Volpe 2006 World Cup.
I don't even know
dude,
what happened there.
And
He
back,
banned.
right?
Yeah,
Wasn't
he
it
banned.
like a lifetime
I
ban?
won no, it was a 1-year ban. But before he was supposed to ban himself, he was supposed to write a letter, post it.
Oh my
why
God.
I was better. Why I was better. Why I was right, and he didn't do it, and that hurts. That still hurts to this day.
Wow.
To this day. When did
To
this
this
happen?
day, I'm still hurt.
2006 World Cup?
Hey, well, he was using a sock to say he was he was autofellatio, so I think that's how you just say that, if not worse.
Yeah, I knew that. I
He
knew
was
that,
admitting
I
to
knew that he was. Yeah.
All right.
Pounding,
closing this thing
pounding
out.
sea dog.
Oh, this was still in the,
donkeys.
this was still in the podcast? Oh my God.
Oh, we're live, dude.
Nice.
Like